Alrighty, so it's Friday once again, which means it's time to do the preview in terms of looking at these weekend's action of match week number 27. And today we are going to look at the 10 games that's going to be happening on Saturday, and then tomorrow I'll look at the 3 games that is going to be happening on Sunday. And we start off with the first game between Atlanta United versus the Philadelphia Union, and I believe this is probably the 5th time that they have faced against each other this season, because, you know, we saw them face against each other twice in the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal match, where they play against each other twice, and then I think they also meet 3 times this season. So yeah, by this time I'm pretty sure both of these teams probably know each other, and this is also when you play with the same team, and especially with them like 4 or 5 times now this season, there's got to be some hatred toward both of these teams, and it seems like there kind of is a bit of a rivalry developed between both of these teams that, when you know the players and the teams that you're playing, you're going to feel like there's maybe some bad feelings that was shared from previous match, and there has been some bad feelings that's been shared in this match, and it seems like that bad blood that we've seen with both of these teams in the CONCACAF Champions League has really went into some of these MLS regular season game. Now, that being said, this is also a big matchup, because in some way you could also say this is kind of a playoff 6-pointer, with Atlanta being in 6th place and Philly are the last team to make it to the playoffs if the playoffs started today. But certainly coming into this game, there is no doubt that Atlanta is going to be the favorites, and they are probably the hottest team right now in the Eastern Conference that is not named the New England Revolution, as they have won 7 out of their last 8 games to improve the record to 9-9-7. And just to give you an idea of the fact that, they're just having a crazy second half resurgence, they could actually get themselves as high as 3rd place, depending on how the other resort is, because they're only 3 points back of 3rd place right now. And even if they don't get to 3rd place by the end of this week, there could be a chance that they could rise all the way up there. And with how hot that they've been, they could definitely get into that position. And that after that, it does seems like it might be a little bit too much for them to overcome Nashville in 2nd place. And obviously they're not going to overcome New England, because New England is on their own island in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, there could be a chance where Atlanta, they're not just going to look for playoffs heading into the second half resurgence that they have. They're looking for some home field advantage and get themselves in a good spot where they can have some good home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Now, this game, of course, will start at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 3:50 p.m. local time, which means that, yeah, unfortunately, this game is going to be on Twitter. Although, I will say this, Twitter stream, believe it or not, lately it has gotten a little bit better, and especially, I feel like the commentary recently, since they have that new play-by-play commentator that I actually don't know what his name is, but he actually has done much better job compared to previous commentator on the Twitter stream. But that being said, besides that, Twitter streams are still Twitter stream. It's very bad quality, and at times it's just there's this, you probably know why I always complain about it. But coming into this game, the Union, of course, they did get a win last time, winning 3-1 against Orlando at home to improve their record to 9-8-7. While for Atlanta, as I mentioned, they won 7 out of the 8 games to improve their record to 9-9-7. Top goal scorer for the Union, you got Kasper Schmeichel with 8 goals, followed by Corey Burke with 4 goals. That same goes with Sergio Santos with 4 goals. Then you got Jacob Glesnes and Jameer Montero both with 3 goals to round out the top 5 goal scorer for the Union. For Atlanta, Joseph Martinez. He's got 9 goals right now, and with how he has started to look more like the Joseph Martinez in these last couple of games, like literally just scoring for fun, don't be surprised he might even sneak into the Golden Boot conversation by the end of the year. I mean, yes, we still don't have a lot of games left this season, and after this game, I think Atlanta only have 8 games left, but with the way that Joseph Martinez is scoring almost every single game, he can definitely catch the leader of the Golden Boot race, which surprisingly, the leader is actually Ola Kamara, who leads the league with 16 goals. But like I said, with Joseph Martinez scoring pretty much almost every single game, I won't be surprised. Not only the fact that he's definitely going to reach double digit, but he could even maybe came close to the 20 goal mark, and that's that's after when Joseph Martinez kind of had a slow start to the season, but this is kind of what we started to expect as he gets kind of more fit and gets back to his rhythm. You can see he is starting to go on a red hot streak, and when Joseph Martinez is on a red hot streak, yeah, that's not good news for the rest of the leagues, but definitely great news if you're Atlanta United. Then you got Ezekiel Barco with 7 goals, followed by Marcelin Moreno with 7 goals. Then you got Anton Walks with 2 goals, and George Bello rounds up the top 5 goal score chart with 1 goal for Atlanta United. But yeah, this should be a very entertaining game and a very high stake game where both of these team, well, at least for one specific team, the Union are just trying to get themselves stay above the red line right now. They've been kind of in a bit of an inconsistent run, while Atlanta United are not even thinking about trying to stay above the red line. They're trying to get into the top 4 again, into the top 3, so they can at least have home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is New England versus Orlando City. So the Revs currently have an 18-5-4 record, and they, I talked about before how they have already clinched the playoffs, but that's not something that they are really aiming for right now. I mean, we knew long before the Revs were going to clinch the playoffs. What they're trying to clinch is definitely the top spot in the East and the Supporters' Shield standings. And judging by the fact that the Supporters' Shield standings and the gap that they have is almost the same as they have for the Eastern Conference standing, yeah, it's pretty clear. I think the Revs are going to win the Supporters' Shield, and barring any major collapse that we see in the last quarter of the season, there's just no way no one's going to catch the Revs with the best record in MLS. Now, they're going to be playing against an Orlando City side that, yeah, they are starting to go through a little bit of a mini free fall at a 10-8-7 record and have lost 3 in a row, while the Revs, of course, as I mentioned, they become the first team to clinch the playoffs after winning 3-2 against the Fire on the road, as this game will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. Top goal scorer for the Revs, you got Gustavo Bo, currently have 11 goals, followed by Adam Buxa with 10 goals. Then you got Tajon Buchanan with 7 goals, and then you got Teal Bunbury, who of course score in the game against the Fire now with 3 goals, and the same goes with Carlos Hill, who scored the game-winning goal for the Revs, now up to 3 goals in terms of the top 5 goals scored for the Revs. For Orlando City, you got Nani currently have 9 goals, followed by Benji Michel with 4 goals. Then you got Teshanek, Ellie Jr. Urso, and Daryl DK with 3 goals to round up the top 5 goals scored for Orlando City. But yeah, this is a game that, for Orlando, this is why I mentioned before where, they just really cannot afford to lose that last game against Montreal. And the fact that they did lose that game, and that was probably the easiest game that they had. Well, actually, not the last game. The last game, of course, they lose to the Union. But prior to that, when they play against Montreal at home, that was supposed to be a must-win game for them. Because knowing the fact that they have to go on the road against the Union, then they have to go on the road against the Revs. And oh, by the way, the very next week, they have to go on the road against Nashville SC. Yeah, that is a murderous kind of row, and right now it is showing the fact that during this gauntlet they have failed to get points in during this gauntlet, and for Orlando, I said before, even though they are right now, I think they're still in the top 4, but I think in 4th place in the Eastern Conference. If they keep dropping resort, and especially with the team behind them are just red hot right now, this game can fall out of the playoffs. And again, I would not would have thought that was possible just a couple of weeks ago, but this just shows you how things can really change, and that, for Orlando City, even though they're going through this gauntlet right now, they have to get some points with the way that, again, teams behind them are just red hot. And, the longer this losing run could be, the more that there could be some fear that Orlando is going to go through a free fall, and kind of similar to what we saw before in previous year. But let's see if they can get some points against a Revs team that, again, I think right now the Revs, even though they know that they're going to win the Supporters' Shield and that they're going to get the top spot in the Eastern Conference, they're still going to try to get wins because they want to chase the record that LAFC owned back in 2019 of getting the most points in a regular season in MLS at 71 points. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, it's going to be Columbus versus Montreal. So the Columbus Crew currently have a record of 8-7-11, while Montreal has a record of 10-7-8. As this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. For Columbus, they had that heroic 1-1 draw against New England away, but obviously there is definitely that question of whether or not if the health of Eloy Rome is good or not. I mean, I haven't heard anything, but I'm assuming probably Rome is not going to be starting in this game because, you know, toward the end of the game, even though he had that heroic moment while he was playing injured and still making some good save, he clearly was injured, and he was definitely pulling his hamstring. So I'm assuming he's probably not going to be available in this one. While Montreal, they of course won 2-0 against the Chicago Fire at home, and you know, for Montreal, I've been very impressed and really impressed with what Wilfried Nancy has done, not just this season, but he's really kind of unbuckled the trend that, you know, this is usually the time when Montreal really started to kind of fall apart and started to finish in a disappointing way to miss the playoffs. But as of now, it still hasn't kind of fall apart, and you know, I hope by saying that I didn't just jinx Montreal and that maybe they're gonna go on a bad run in these next couple of games. Now, top goal scorer for Columbus, you got Lucas Zarian with 7 goals, followed by Miguel Berry with 5 goals. Then you got Jersey Zardes also with 5 goals. Pedro Santos and Jonathan Mensah finish off with 2 goals for Columbus. While for Montreal, you got Mason Toy currently with 7 goals, followed by Ramel Kyoto with 5 goals. Georgi Mihailich with 4 goals. Joaquin Torres with 3 goals, and then you finish off with Zach Broggiards with 2 goals for Montreal. But yeah, you know, for this game, I think Columbus, they are definitely desperate to get all 3 points in this game. I mean, Montreal this season on the road, they've been okay, but at times they also haven't had as much success as they have been at home, and knowing the fact that Columbus are desperate in terms of getting all 3 points and staying pace with some of these teams that they're battling that is outside the playoff picture and trying to get themselves back above the red line, they definitely need to win this game against Montreal. But now moving on in terms of the next match, and speaking of a team that is now outside of the playoff picture, is DC United, and it has to be harsh if you're a DC fan seeing your team playing against Atlanta in that showdown in that Eastern Conference matchup, and you lose that game, and now you find yourself outside the playoffs. But that's what happened when you're in the Eastern Conference, where again it just seems like almost every team that is either above or below the red line and around that kind of bubble area are just winning almost every single week, and that just puts a lot of pressure on some of these teams that they got to win if they want to keep pace in terms of this Eastern Conference playoff race as we head into the home stretch of the season. Now, the good news is they do have a good chance to get an easy 3 points against FC Cincinnati, and I know, no disrespect toward FC Cincinnati, but you can clearly tell they have checked out this season. Like these last couple of games, it has just been tough. I mean, yes, they did finally get their first ever win at TKO Stadium, and certainly that's probably one of the only things that some of their fans have been able to cheer about. But otherwise, these last couple of games, and especially when they play against a tough opponent, they just have been just been a punching bag to opposition. And you know, coming into this game, I think DC will think that will be the case, as this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. As I mentioned, DC was involved in that impressive game between Atlanta United and a very entertaining game, but unfortunately they came on the losing end by losing 3-2 on the road. While FC Cincinnati lost 2-1 against NYCFC at home. And in terms of the top goal scorer for DC United, again, I don't think anybody would have expected that Ola Kamara is actually leading the Golden Boot race, but he started to kind of turn back the clock, kind of almost going back to his Columbus day where he was the most lethal goal scorer in the league, and now he has scored 16 goals to lead the league this season. Now, albeit a lot of those goals came from the penalty spot, and when you of course score goals from the penalty spot, yeah, it's gonna pile up your goal score total. But that being said, I don't think anyone would have predicted that Ola Kamara would be the top goal scorer. I mean, a couple of years ago, maybe, but especially with the way that these last couple of years, he's definitely have regressed as he started to get older. Nobody would have thought that he would be in the Golden Boot leader up to this point in the season. But then you got Jordi Reyna currently with 4 goals, followed by Paul Arriola with 3 goals, and then Roman Abila and Yamil Assad finish off the top 5 with 2 goals for DC United. For FC Cincinnati, you got Brenier leading the list with 7 goals, followed by Lucho Acosta with 4 goals. Then you got Alvaro Barria with 3 goals, followed by Harris Medunian with 2 goals, and you got Valencia finish off with the top 5 with also 2 goals for FC Cincinnati. But again, this is a game for DC. They gotta take advantage of it because when you play against a lowly FC Cincinnati side and you want to try to keep yourself in the playoff race, you have to win this game. I mean, if they do not win this game, then there should be some concern if you're a DC fan when you just literally got probably. I mean, FC Cincinnati is literally trying to hand you all 3 points in this game, and it's almost like a free win. And again, I know we said before that in MLS anything can happen, but knowing how FC Cincinnati has been this season, and especially when they do play against bigger team, yeah, they have just been kind of a rollover for opposition, and I expect that is going to be the case in this one. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, it's going to be Colorado versus Toronto FC. So we got another rare interconference matchup as the Rapids are going to be playing against the worst team right now in the league, that is Toronto FC, with a 4-6-15 record, while the Rapids have a 12-8-4 record. Now that being said, Toronto did finally get their fourth win and finally end that long winless run by winning 2-1 against Nashville at home, while the Rapids, they drew 1-1 against Vancouver at home. And in these last couple of games, the Rapids have no doubt cooled down, and it's been kind of frustrating if you're a Rapids fan, especially with the way that they have started to give up goals, especially late in games that they have not done pretty much throughout the entire part of the season. Now, this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is a 6:08 p.m. local time. It's actually a little bit earlier start for a Rapids game than usually is, especially on a Saturday. But top goal scorer for the Rapids, you got Michael Barrios, and Jonathan Lewis leads the chart with 7 goals, followed by Diego Rubio and Andre Shinshiki with 4 goals. And then you got Cole Bassett with 3 goals to finish off the top goal scorer for the Colorado Rapids. For Toronto, you got Osorio currently with 4 goals, followed by Ayo Akinola with 3 goals. Then you got Josie Outdoor, Omar Gonzalez, and Richie Larea finish the chart with 2 goals for TFC. But yeah, for the Rapids, this is definitely a good chance for them to bounce back, and a good chance to try to stay with SKC and Seattle for those top 2 spots, because right now they're still in a spot where if they can win some games and hope that maybe Sporting KC and Seattle drop points, they can still get that top spot in the Western Conference. But when you look at these last couple of games, they actually had an opportunity to get that top spot, but they haven't been able to take advantage of it. And this is a game where they could get themselves finally a win against a TFC team that, yes, they did finally get a win in the last game, but all that does is basically just make sure that they hope to not win the wooden spoon this year. I mean, you talk about playoff races and the top of the standing race. You also look at the wooden spoon race. That race is actually very, very tight. Like, there is definitely a lot of teams this season that are actually right there to potentially win the wooden spoon this year, and I think the gaps are only like between 4 points of those 4 teams. So yeah, I guess maybe that's something to fight for. Although winning the wooden spoon, unlike how in the playoffs you need to win games, you just need to lose game, which I don't think these players and these coaches of these teams that is in the wooden spoon race are thinking about doing it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, as much as a lot of these teams that are, or fans of these teams that are just like the bottom feeder and they're just kind of having that banter of winning the wooden spoon, I'm pretty sure that's not the same case with these players and these coaches, where win the wooden spoon would be the last priority that they're trying to get by the end of the season. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, it's going to be Minnesota versus the Houston Dynamo. So this game, of course, will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. The Loons, of course, coming off of a much-needed 3-0 win against the Galaxy at home to improve the record to 9-7-8. While the Dynamo, as I mentioned, they're one of those teams that is battling for that wooden spoon, and they're also trying to avoid winning it because they also won their last match 3-2 against FC Dallas at home. And ever since they end that 16-game winless run, Houston has really started to look more of a respectable MLS team, and a team that is not as a walkover as it has seemed during that long winless run that they're on. Now, that being said, in terms of the top goal scorer for Minnesota, you got Robin Lod currently leads the team with 6 goals, followed by Adrian Hunu and Emmanuel Reynoso with 4 goals. Then you got Hassani Dotson and Ethan Finley rounds up the top 5 with 2 goals for Minnesota. For Houston, Fafa Pico, who has just been red hot in these last couple of games, have now got double digit with 10 goals, followed by Maxi Urruti with 6 goals. Then you got Tyler Pasher with 4 goals, Mateus Vera with 3 goals, and Griffin Dorsey rounds up the top 5 with 2 goals for the Houston Dynamo. And like I said before, a couple of weeks ago, I would think that this should be easy 3 points for the Loons, especially against a lowly Houston team. But knowing how Houston has been in these last couple of games, I'm not going to say that this is an automatic win for this team. Now, that being said, I still hope that this team can get all 3 points, because right now they are the last team to make it into the playoffs in the Western Conference, and there are a couple of teams below them that are hungry to try to take their spot. And I will also say this: as much as I think the Loons are only 1 point above the red line, they do have a game in hand over teams that is below them in the playoff line. But again, this is a game when you're playing against one of the weakest team in the league. You have to get all 3 points, and especially at home, too. Like, there should be no excuse that Minnesota does not get all 3 points in this game against Houston, and if they don't, then I feel like there should be. So I'm starting to be very concerning the fact that, this team might not actually make the playoffs, and especially you're in this playoff race and you play against easy team, you have to get wins to do so. So when you do face against those tough teams, maybe that could put a little bit of pressure off of them. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 4 games that is going to be happening in terms of the Saturday night action of match week number 27. But yeah, moving on, in terms of the next match, is none other than, in my opinion, the game of the week. And that, of course, is the New York Derby, as it's pretty much part 2 of the New York Derby of this week, after both of these teams drew 1-1. One back on Wednesday, and also this is the 20th meeting of the New York Derby. As coming into this game, NYCFC will have an 11-6-8 record, while the Red Bulls have a 7-6-11 record. And this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is actually exactly at 8 o'clock, although I do not believe that, because usually with this game actually not being on national television, which I'm really surprised that this game is not on national television. Like, after what we saw from the Wednesday action, this game have to at least be on national television, right? But no, it's going to be on local television, and usually local television, the game kicks off about 8 minutes after the advertised kick, but here it's on the league website, at least it's going to say it start right on time where it's advertised. But in terms of the last 5 head-to-head matchup in the New York Derby, as I mentioned, on Wednesday they played to a crazy 1-1 draw between both of these teams, before NYCFC winning 5-2 against the Red Bulls, and that the Red Bulls did win 1-0 against NYCFC. Then NYCFC, of course, winning 2-1 against the Red Bulls, and then the Red Bulls basically returned the favor by winning 2-1 against NYCFC. But like I said, I am really looking forward to this New York Derby, and that, again, after what we saw in the last game, I hope that intensity will keep into this one. Although coming into this game, there's no doubt that NYCFC, there might be some concern knowing the fact that, because they had 2 players sent off in that midweek Derby match, they're probably going to be missing. Well, they're probably, not just probably, but they're going to miss those guys. And those guys are that got sent off on that midweek Derby match are pretty important players. Like, Keaton Parks is a very important player for this NYCFC team in the midfield, and Maxime Chenot is one of their talented player in that back line. So we'll see whether or not if the Red Bulls can basically expose that. But coming into this game, like I said, I am really looking forward to this and hope that we're going to have another exciting New York Derby as we have seen in these past couple of matches. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is a match that I could also say could be the game of the week, but in many ways this is definitely a playoff 6-pointer in the Western Conference between the San Jose Earthquakes versus LAFC, as this game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:08 p.m. local time. The Quakes, wow, what a wild week that was last week, where they pretty much gone back to the Mateus Almeida kind of team from last year, where this team just is is just not only entertaining to watch for a neutral, but as a Quakes fan, it just gives me such a roller coaster of an emotion. Seeing this team lose 4-3 at home and then somehow winning 4-3 against Austin and able to come back from a 3-1 deficit to do so to keep themselves alive in the playoff race. Well, for LAFC, they lost 2-1 against the Portland Timbers away and find themselves once again below the red line again. And the top goal scored for both of these teams for the Quakes, Joe Feast. I mean, he is just red hot right now with 5 goals in the last 2 games to now get his tally to 10 goals, followed by K-Cal with 4 goals, Christian Espinoza with 3 goals, Oswaldo Alanis with 2 goals, and Nathan with 2 goals. Well, for LAFC, speaking of a player that also have been red hot, Chicho Orenko, he's been red hot in these last 5 games. In fact, scoring in 5 consecutive games right now to get his tally to 6 goals. That is the same for Diego Rossi, although Rossi is actually no longer with LAFC. Well, he's currently on loan right now. He's still part of the LAFC roster, but he's right now just on loan with Fenerbahce. Before he left, he had 6 goals with LAFC. Then you got Jose Cifuentes with 5 goals, followed by Carlos Vela with 5 goals, and Edouard Atuesta with 3 goals to round up the top 5 goals scored for LAFC this season. And like I said, it is a playoff 6-pointer because both of these teams are right there in terms of a spot. Well, actually, I would say that the Quakes, they're in 10th position right now, while LAFC is actually closer in terms of getting themselves above the red line. And in some way, I would say that this is more of a must-win for the Quakes than is for LAFC because, it's a home game. And home form has not been good enough this season for the Quakes. Like, this season, it's kind of weird that this year with as much as the points that they've dropped at home, they kind of make it up with some of the road wins, and that I think this season they've already got the most road wins that they have had in these last couple of years. But the reason why they're not in a good position, still not in a good position of making the playoffs, is that they drop way too many home points. Now, that being said, the last time they did get a home win was indeed against LAFC. And oh, by the way, did I mention the fact that I'm not attending this game? I mean, I'm just convinced that every time when I went to a Quakes game this season, besides that opening weekend's matchup against FC Dallas, where I saw them win 3-1, they have either drew or lost every time that I'm being there. So I am convinced the fact that if I don't attend this game, the Quakes are going to get a win. And honestly, if that is going to be the case, I might as well just skip the very next match that the Quakes are going to be playing, which is going to be against the Seattle Sounders, because again, I'm just convinced that, I know I said before that I don't really kind of believe in some of the kind of conspiracy theory or these jinx that has happened, but I just feel like with how the way this season has gone, and especially with just me being in the stadium and seeing them lose or draw in frustrating fashion, and when I'm not there, they're able to get wins, I'm just convinced I'm a bad luck charm to the Quakes. So for this to put to the test, I'm actually not going to be attending this game and see if the Quakes can pull off a big win. And again, they really need to get this big win because, as I mentioned, on Wednesday, they were going to be playing against the Seattle Sounders, and that looked like could be an automatic loss, especially with the way that the Sounders are trying to secure themselves in the top spot in the Western Conference. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, now, while both of these teams are playing against each other, that is LAFC and the Sounders Earthquakes, they're also going to be keeping an close eye on this game too, at least for some of the fans there. And I would definitely be keeping a close eye between Vancouver and FC Dallas. And in some way, I think both of these fan bases are going to be rooting for FC Dallas in this match because Vancouver is another team that is in the midst of teams that's below the red line that still have a shot of potentially making the playoffs. I mean, technically, you could maybe even include FC Dallas in terms of that conversation because they're also not that far from being above the playoff line. But judging by the fact that they also have played some of the most game in the Western Conference and a couple of teams above them have games in hand, and not to mention they kind of maybe just waved the white flag last week by firing Luchi Gonzalez, and looks like they just feel like they're in that see you next season mode. It just feels like maybe they are indeed done for this season, and all they're going to be play for is going to be that Copa Trophy. But coming into this game, they have a record of 6-9-11, while the Whitecaps have a 7-9-8 record. The Whitecaps got a good 1-1 draw against Colorado away in the last match, while Dallas, of course, losing 3-2 in the Texas Derby against Houston away. This game will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. The actual kickoff is 7:11 p.m. local time. Top goal scorer for the Whitecaps, you got Christian Dahome with 8 goals, followed by Brian White with 5 goals. Then you got Davy Caicedo with 4 goals, before you got Lucas Cavallini with 3 goals. And then finish off the top 5, you got Ryan Gull with 2 goals for the Vancouver Whitecaps. For FC Dallas, Ricardo Pepi, who is definitely the front runner of winning Young Player of the Year this season, and potentially is going to be that next American that's going to make that big money move off to Europe. I mean, there's already been a ton of rumors that he could actually leave this Dallas team as soon as the end of the season, and there could be a deal to be made because there is a lot of team overseas that are in heavy interest of Ricardo Pepi. But he currently have 12 goals this season, followed by Obrian with 8 goals. Then you got Jesus Ferreira with 6 goals, followed by Hara with 4 goals, and then Ryan Hollinshead also with 4 goals for FC Dallas. So yeah, like I said, both of these teams that I've just mentioned between the Quakes and LAFC, besides playing against each other, they're definitely going to be rooting for Dallas to hope to get all 3 points against a Whitecaps team that, lately, ever since that they have went through that 10-game unbeaten run, they have definitely gone back to reality a little bit, and unfortunately, this is probably the wrong time for the Whitecaps to go back into reality, because they need to keep getting wins so that they can keep in this playoff race in the Western Conference. But now moving on into the last match on this board is going to be the Portland Timbers versus RSL. So, both of these teams before they were a couple of weeks ago, they were definitely in that conversation alongside with Vancouver, the Quakes, LAFC, and FC Dallas in terms of that mad playoff race in the West. But they started to kind of build themselves a little bit of a cushion, as the Timbers have now got all the way up to 5th place in the West with an 11-4-10 record, and have looked red hot lately by winning 4 out of their last 5 games. While RSL, they got a big 1-0 win against the Seattle Sounders at home to improve the record to 10-6-9, as this game will be the last game to kick off with the Saturday action, and it's a late kickoff, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff is 7:38 p.m. local time. Top goal scorer for the Portland Timbers, you got Felipe Mora with 10 goals, followed by Darren Asprilla with 6 goals. Then you got Sebastian Blanco, Jimmy Chara with 3 goals, and then rounding up your top 5, you got George Fashive with not 5 goals. It's actually 2 goals that he has. That I don't know why I wrote 5 there, and in fact, I can maybe change it up right here. He actually only have 2 goals right now. I mean, if he has 5 goals, he would be in 3rd place right now in terms of the top goal scorer chart. But for RSL, you got Damir Kralek with 10 goals, followed by Rubio Rubin with 7 goals, and that's the same tally for Albert Rusnak in 3rd place. Then you got Anderson Julio with 6 goals, and then round out the top 5, you got Justin Glad with two goals. So yeah, let's see how this game, of course, would turn out. Obviously, the last couple of times when both of these teams met, especially at Providence Park, there has definitely been some fireworks in these games, and that these last couple of games has also been very high score too, and we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case again. And certainly both of these teams want to get wins to further solidify their chances of making the playoffs, because like I said, both of these teams not long ago, they were in that conversation along with like 4 other Western Conference teams to try to battle for these last 2 spots in the playoffs. But all of a sudden, with them starting to get wins, that is both of these teams, they have now solidified themselves in a pretty good position where they can potentially make the playoffs at the end of the season out in the West. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all 10 of these games. Like I said, tomorrow I will be doing the preview of the 3 games that's going to be happening on Sunday. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 10 games. And as always, let me know in the comments below also what's your prediction for all 10 of these games. And yeah,